And you'll want a blanket, and for you, Hadley, you're gonna want to get borrow one of our mats just for one thing.
I get a Yana massage today.
Ooh, God, I haven't talked to her in foreversies.
She hasn't been coming in at all.
Yeah. Oh, what's?
And she's
Check him out
a melt instructor. She could be a melt instructor.
Oh, that's right. She should totally do that. She was gonna practice on me, and then her mother-in-law passed away, or father-in-law, or something like that.
I'll close this window, but it's ridiculous.
Okay, we got, hi, yay, you made it.
Hold it together. It was could have gone either way.
I'm so happy.
Always the case.
David J. and Hadley. I figured, I was like, because there was literally, you were the only person. I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. But I mean, there's people online, but I was like, I bet there's gonna be others. So set up anywhere, and then Ben, remind me, is there movements that feel better or worse?
I
than
haven't
others?
noticed anything that seems bad,
Yeah,
but my surgeon says avoid taking this across
over
my
the,
body.
yeah, okay. And we're not really
What do surgeons know?
do
Nothing.
do much. We won't do much of that if, I'm trying to think, if any.
I'll notice.
Yeah, you'll know, yeah.
If you see me doing it, speak up.
Okay, and then, you're gonna want a blanket. What kind of mat do you have?
Once.
If your hamstrings are really tight, this should be fine. Otherwise, get them and Duke them out over there also, because you'll want both, but just depends on how tight you're feeling.
I'm pretty tight, so if I'm pretty tight, I don't need another one?
Yes, you do not need another one if you're pretty tight in your hamstrings
Yeah.
right now.
I carried a backpack for the first time a few days ago. I feel like
Oh, what'd you do?
I met up with Audrey and Andrew at the North End of the Lake.
Oh, nice.
And I loaded my backpack pretty heavy.
Yeah,
I should use trekking bolts, but it felt good, but I was glad there weren't poles.
okay, right.
In hindsight, I was like, that's
Now, you
okay.
wanna talk to him about not using, poles? She loves yelling people with us.
I'm ordering a pair today.
I've seen her. And actually here, there's a Labor Day sales are happening like at, Teton's.
This coming Thursday.
No, it's already happening.
REI's
at
got sales going on.
TMX, yeah, TMX
Really?
or whatever. And then, yeah, REI's, their sales going on.
I found the pair I want, they're very shishi and expensive, and
Oh,
I have to buy them online, but they weigh like nothing.
What
Yeah.
kind are they? Who makes them?
I have to look at my
Yeah,
phone,
I
it's a
hate
boutique
them.
company that does ultralight backpacks.
Ah.
So they're carbon, and they've got this wonderful cork handle.
It's not, is it Agnes?
No, it's a
it sounds
weirder
like-
name than that, it's like, I'll look it up on my phone.
Huh. I
But
love mine.
They're $200, which seems like a lot for poles,
No, it
but I'll
doesn't.
probably use them for the rest of my
Yeah, no,
life.
I spent 150 on mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they break down like this and I can travel.
Yeah,
I was
no,
like,
they're
I'm
great.
gonna throw it out.
Yeah, I got expensive ones too.
But I kind of just forgot when I did the backpack
Yeah,
experiment.
it's,
and that was
you're
one of the things
you're doing new stuff, you know. Doing new stuff now. Okay, let me see if I need to let anybody in. Oh, God. All right, I'm gonna go to the restroom real quick. So that's all kinds of toys today, you guys.
There's a strap, there's a blanket. No,
Wow.
I like weird. Nice.
I lost my other pad and it's this like tough black one.
yeah.
And I went to replace it, and they had a black one that was very expensive, and the purple one that was less
I would
expensive.
have gone the purple.
And I was like,
Oh, this is my favorite color, so there you have it.
I heard you snicker.
Okay, how are you, Hadley?
Oh, yeah, it sounds like it. See,
Been a
I
while.
thought that might be cute.
It's me.
How's your life?
Life is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you?
Good. Yeah. Yeah, super thankful for it.
Yeah. Feel the same.
Yeah. I have been lethargic the last 3 weeks. My friend said I'm just sharpening the pencil.
Yeah.
You gotta sharpen the pencil. But I have felt a little kind of, I got overworked, so I
I
just
mean,
got
I
over
don't
it.
think we're supposed to be going 24/7.
We're not. In fact,
Entire life.
the last 3 weeks have proven that to me.
Yeah. 3 weeks is not that much rest.
No, it's not. Kind of ease it back into it this week. Are you here in town?
I'm not. Friends.
Cool.
Yeah.
Skiing like that. and things?
I'm trying. I didn't really snow that much there anymore.
No.
Also, doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, that's what I went over there once to ski and realized, oh, many people did that. It's like, the snow doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe them. And then now I totally see it.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't matter.
Somebody go.
Hi, everybody online.
On the train.
Is that Sarah? All right.
The cultures, the roads.
Vanessa, Jennifer just made a little comment that sometimes she's having a hard time seeing you or doing right.
I can't, yeah,
I think it's hard to do both. online
Yeah.
and studio.
yeah. That's why I haven't been demoing when you guys face that way, because if I have you guys
Yeah,
turn, so I do my best, but, otherwise I'm just standing up here doing everything. Do you know what I mean? And I have a hard time.
and it's, I mean, sometimes the visual is better than the
That's
verbal.
bad, Sarah.
Huh?
Sometimes the visual for me is better than the verbal,
Okay,
but it's hard to do both.
right.
Just FYI.
All right, so.
I asked my brother.
Thanks for being here today. We've got. Today I have a quote, and I'm not really gonna say much about it, because I'll just reference it as we go through, and so just something to think about, so we don't spend all day sitting here talking. Just gonna get to the end here, okay. And we do have the beautiful noise of the machine. I hope you guys at home don't hear whatever's happening over there. We thought they were done, but it's always been like this. Okay. Thanks for being here. Happy Monday. So this is a quote by, some of you might be familiar with Alan Watts, he's a spiritual teacher. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. Through our eyes, the universe is perceiving itself. Through our ears, the universe is listening to its harmonies. We are the witnesses through which the universe becomes conscious of its glory, of its magnificence. So that's a very certain theory of existence and consciousness, that consciousness actually experiences itself through us as individuals. So there's this idea of something bigger than ourselves, all connected, and then also ourselves operating within that as individuals, and how that actually is connecting us as individuals. We are connecting into consciousness as consciousness experiences itself through us. Wow. And so we're gonna have, and why this resonated today is we're gonna be playing with this idea of parts of our body moving individually. So it's good to be able to move all our parts individually and collectively. And I've been playing with this quite a bit. And so we'll have this idea of kind of the collective and also the benefit of moving things separately, even though it's not a disconnection, it's actually connecting us deeper in to be, each bone moving separately. Does that make sense? It will, if it doesn't now. All right, cool. That's the point of the asana today. But then place your hands into your heart center. And a nice contemplation, I think we all kind of know where we land on this spectrum, is, you know, do you lean more towards that individual experience, meaning more of a solo introvert type, or are you more, you know, kind of plugged into the world around you, more of a social butterfly, we could call it? And then, you know, how do you play finding that place in the middle? Some of us, it's like forcing yourselves to go out in public, you know, big raised hands here. And then other people, it's like, no, I need to go do this by myself, right? And so just this play, so we can be fully connected. If we're all one way or the other, we, you know, can disconnect. We'll do one Om together, inhaling. Release your hands and lift your legs. Great. So we're going to start with a little bit of foot yoga. I feel like we've probably been quite a bit of us. I think everybody has been on their feet in one way or another. And we're going to do the one, and I think it would actually be too much to do that other one. So we're going to do this one, where you cross the right foot on top of the left, the top of your right foot at the top of the arch, that the boniest part of, highest part of your top foot, into the highest part of the arch, inside arch on your bottom foot. And so, yeah, so I'm hearing some noises. That will happen. And I haven't done that much I go through like a stage and I feel really good about myself for like a week, and then I totally forget. And so if you haven't done this in a while, it might be kind of intense. And so depending on you, if this isn't okay on the knees, you just lean forward and press use a little force to press your foot in. If you can sit back and get a little weight, that's great, but you don't have to. It's just how intense. The big thing is, oh God, here's another person, is that it's not, oh, that's my hands raised, hilarious. That it's not that comfortable. So if it's comfortable for you, then you need to move your foot around a little bit more until you find that spot. Sometimes if somebody has really flat feet, that might be the case that you don't feel, but in general you will. Okay, yeah, okay, a few more breaths here. This reminded me where they are. We were talking about sales at the various stores around town. I'm gonna get myself some new insoles after the summer of being on the same. And then switch sides. Sweet relief, and then back in. Whew. Second side, yeah, flipping it around. And if anybody's, I didn't say this too much, sorry, but you could also make a roll underneath the ankle right where the foot meets the ankle on the front, if that part of your foot, it's really hard to flatten your foot out. So you could have a little, pretend this is your foot, a blanket right there. Breathe. Sometimes this will even raise the heat. You may notice your temperature kind of rise a little bit. And that's just, it's called tapas, a little bit of inner heat burning through. And notice if you're, so we can focus on the individual experience of the intensity of the foot, but then you can open it up, notice your jaw, your shoulders, and you feel how that uncomfortable sort of spreads through your entire body. And here we want to see if we can isolate it down. So we're not straining while we're in this experience, which can be a fun challenge. And then inhale, come out of that, and then we'll come to all fours, and you're gonna reach your either foot back, foot into the mat, and stretch your heel back like so. And this will give you a little nice calf stretch, stretching through the arch of the foot. And here we're actually stretching the skin at the bottom of the foot here. So really kind of reach back through your heel. And then switch sides. It's sort of like the end of season. We'll do some end of season stuff today. Quad stretches, feet, hammy, thing.
And then release. So those of you at home, and well, I'll just explain it and then you can decide. If you're on carpet, you could just roll up your mat and sit on the carpet. If you are on wood, you might want to get a blanket or something, because we're going to make a roll with our mat. If you have a thinner mat, you could even double it over. But those of us who have a thicker mat, if you know you have really tight hamstrings, I would not roll up one of the thick Manduka mats if you bought it from here. I would not roll it up all the way, okay? Because it's gonna be not pleasant at all. So then, sorry, just sometimes the things I do to Patty. Then, if you don't have a mat anymore because you rolled it up, you'll have the blanket lengthwise and you'll have your knees and your feet on the blanket. And then you place the roll as much as you can behind the backs of the knees. Then I suggest, since it is, we've done some hiking, etc., probably at this point in the year, you just slowly let yourself come in. You're not already there. And then maybe this is enough for you moving forward. If you can, you come up and then generally, and this is another one, if it's not uncomfortable. Is that enough, Ellie, for you? Yeah. If it's not uncomfortable, you could always double over your mat. That would you can't even really do it. This would be somebody who had a really thin mat. Okay. Relax your shoulders and and breathe. We haven't done this in quite some time. But it's good to do. It helps. We're kind of cutting off the circulation, and then when we take it off, it'll come back in. So it's sort of like massage where somebody just basically sat on their legs. You're like, that doesn't sound pleasant. Well, guess what? This is not pleasant. Breathe here, a few more breaths. And this is actually integrating what we're doing here, believe it or not. We're pressing the muscle into the bone. And then we'll move it down a notch because we could. And then you just move it. This is more center of calf. For most people, they get a little more relief here, but not always. You gotta feel the calves spread out a little bit more, hopefully. Depends how tight they are. So when you don't feel the muscle spread, that means you should probably do this a little bit more. That's total. Or foam roll, Theragun, something into the backs of the legs. So that means the muscles are kind of stuck into a mold, basically. And then Dave, I think you'll probably really feel this one. We're gonna move it down. So this is like bikers, road bikers, really feel this one quite a bit. Runners, where we're moving it down into the part of the soleus and the right below the calf, between the heel and the beginning of the calf. And then if you're getting nothing here and you want to switch it up to something more spicy, you could do that for yourself. And just notice if you're able to now kind of, settle into the discomfort a little bit more. We sort of regulated ourselves. And again, I always say, we're not here to be, make discomfort in the body. So in this instance, it's okay, but a lot of the time we want to be comfy with some stretch or strength. And then come out of that and let's get our blocks for a little more luxury. You're gonna place those underneath your hands lengthwise, and then you're gonna reach your hips back in space for downward dog. If you want a little more space in your legs, you could take your feet a little bit wider apart. And you want to think of lifting your hips upward towards the sky and back. So there's like a harness lifting you up and then pulling you backward towards the wall behind you. And the blocks just give you a little more space to reach back through your hips. It helps you kind of stay out of your shoulders and or stay out of your wrist joints. And then you can even turn your hands slightly out here, if you like. Good. And that's anybody who has a little tighter shoulder situation going on. Turn your hands out, that can help just modify and open a little bit more. And then Ben, for you for today, go ahead and bend your knees and keep the knee bend and reach your hips higher up so you can get out of that mid spot in your back. There you go, good. Okay. And then on your next exhale, we'll bring knees back down to the floor and we're gonna come onto our backs and this is optional. So you could have a block, I'll show you here. This side of the block, if you do on the flattest end, is gonna do a little something. So it depends, this is what we're gonna do. Or you could be on the higher end of the block, not on the highest, please. That kind of defeats the purpose of what we want here. And then you'll lift one foot up and then the other. And you could also do this 100% on the floor. And then you're gonna lower one leg down and just tap your toes down and then the other. Things that we want to happen here is we wanna be unified in our pelvis so that the hips are not moving. You don't feel the hips on the block are in total stillness. And when that happens, that means that your legs are moving individually without the help of your hips. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. If you try this and you can't get it to happen, lower the block down and continue here. And you draw your belly back towards your spine. Good. And implies they call this hip dissociation, but I think the word dissociation has some really negative connotations in our culture. So it's just individual movements, independent movement. And Sarah, if you can bring your knees up a little bit higher so you go for neutral and then dip down, neutral, yeah, like that, good. See that control there. Couple more rounds and just notice how that feels for you. You feel one side maybe in the core working a little bit more, whatever. And this, believe it or not, is one of the things we do for back pain. It seems like the most random thing, but that whole idea of being able to move together and separately is one of the big keys in eliminating back pain. And then once you've done one more round, place one foot on the floor and then the other and lift your hips up, take the block out, and we'll do one more on our back like this. This time, just notice here, back of your hips into the floor, you have a little space between your low back and the butterfingers with the space. Draw your shoulders down your back a little bit so you feel even a little engagement in your side bodies. And then lift one foot up and then the other, knees together, feet together. We're gonna aim our feet towards the left corner of the mat. And then and we're not reaching the legs out. You're just exactly like we just did, but you're at a diagonal, tapping the legs down, come through center, and then take both feet to the right edge of your mat. And if you can't help but arch your back as you do this, then you could press your low back into the floor. I actually prefer, if you don't do that, stay neutral and just don't move your legs down as far. So, and try and keep your knees together if possible. And then we're using, you can probably feel here the obliques. Yeah. And this is part of the thing is, yeah, I would move even a little bit less than in the downward. So you try and this is going to be more of a challenge for you. Yeah. And so here, if we're not using our hips to help, then we have to use our core. Okay. Then go ahead. I'm getting the sense we're good there. Both feet on the floor. Take a few windshield wipers there. Good. So this is all just like sort of small dinky stuff that you might not want to do by yourself, but it's really good to do. And then come back through center. So from here, I'm gonna do a quad stretch and I'll give you guys a couple options. I have found if you can't grab onto your foot, you know, like this kind of thing, where you grab on to your foot in a lunge like so, I would stay down with no block like this. If you can grab onto the foot, you could place a block underneath your left knee. And if you're like, I don't know about balance right now, you would have the other block underneath your, we'll place it to the inside edge of your right foot. And then you could grab on, your right foot is forward in this one, yeah. And then come up from there.
Are you holding on your foot?
Yes, if available. If not available, there's a couple other ways. So you could be here in this one and just stretch. You could, if you don't grab onto your foot, a nice release. So if your quads just feel like steel and they're not like, just feels kind of pointless to stretch right now. If you have your knee, if you're not holding on your foot, you could do this. And this helps release the muscle. So you might not get a stretch, but it will release it, allowing you to get a stretch. It's sort of, this is a technique. And then I like to do that. I've kind of played around with that concept and I do it, and keep in mind balance, don't spin around. I'm just showing you from the side. I kind of do this, which is sort of the same thing. If you can hold on to the foot, and that helps me, you'll just feel like the tension release. So we like stretch, but if you have tension, it blocks the stretch, if that makes sense. But if you're like, I'm fine, I'm just getting a nice stretch, I don't feel that, sort of like some of my muscle fibers are made out of, you know, steel, then you're fine. And this with the block gets you more into the center of the thigh, if it's available. And then release that, and we'll just switch sides. Same thing. Lots of options here, just depending on your body today. Sometimes it's just purely a flexion issue in the knee joint. Sometimes it's gabbing under the foot and being able to get the thigh back up so that the hamstring doesn't freak out, whatever. And then you could pump the heel either way or not. And breathe. And the block is there if you feel like, oh gosh, I just can't quite get the balance. You could always have your hand down and then just draw your tailbone down to help you stay more stable. Or two here more. And then release that. And let's go back to downward facing dog with the blocks if that felt good for you. If you'd rather not use the blocks, you don't have to. I just find you get a little more expansion that way. You should take your legs a little bit wider. Yeah, there you go. To give you a little more space to reach your hips back into, right? Good. And then on your exhale, draw your right leg through for a lunge. You might have to, once you're up there, knock the blocks out of your way if you need to. And then we'll come up to a high lunge. Give yourself a moment. If you're working on your stability right now, you can have a little shorter of a stance, okay? We're gonna interlace fingers and then press palms to the sky here. Remember, we work upper arm bones towards one another, hugging in by ears, and then at the same time, a little yoga magic would be to resist the forearms away from one another, even as you're hugging your arm bones in. So if you think of bent elbows, that's half the game, is that the forearms are in. Nice. And then exhale, plant. You could just switch sides. You could plant your hands down. If you really want to sneak in a vinyasa, you could do that. Whatever makes sense in your body today, come up. And then once you're in your lunge, back heel points straight to the sky. We're going to switch the clasp. So the other pinky is in front and then come up. So this one generally you'll feel a little tighter than what's automatic for you. You hug your upper arm bones in. And then if you know, you try it out, kind of moving, this is another, moving the bones separately, is that the forearms resist away at the same time, because that joint allows for things to be, you know, you can do one thing with your forearms and another with your upper arm bones when, you know, if you work out it, this is the best way to say that. And then exhale, let's plant hands down to the floor, coming into a plank. You can always bring your knees down. You can always slither your way down to the floor. With being mindful of your joints. Good. And let's do spider finger cobra here. So fingertips into the wood, elbows right over your wrists. And you can even take your fingers out a little bit wider, Ben. Lift your shoulders, lift your chest up. And we know there's a press, right? There's a press that goes on to get up there. Then once you're there, you're going to draw the outer shoulder blades towards one another, and that brings in a little bit of softness, right? So if we did only all push, you know, that wouldn't be that pleasant. Try and spread your pinky toes and press them down into the ground. They might not touch the ground, that's fine. Just imagine that happening. And then lower down, hands underneath you, downward facing dog, Krishnasana. And you know, in here, you can always come to all fours, you can come to a child's pose, whatever works in your body. If your shoulders are rather tight, you can spin your hands out a little bit to give you a little space to get some more opening. And then on your next exhale, draw your right leg for a lunge again. And we'll come up to a high lunge, back heel quite straight to the sky. So you're in the high lunge, right foot forward, and let's take arms out into a T and we'll do the shark. So if you're not used to playing this kind of stability game in here, just move as slow as you need to. Maybe you don't even do the full movement because there's a lot actually happening here. And you can even tuck your chin. So yes, we're opening, but we're also really playing dynamic movement while the legs are in stillness, because as we know, as we're out there in the world, you know, there's lots of challenges happening. We got groceries, we got polls, we got, I don't know what else, keys, whatever people carry, their laptops. And then on your next exhale, step forward, we'll just switch sides. And then we'll do arms in cactus, and then we'll rotate the other way, right? So just same thing here. Keep stability is paramount. Hugging from your feet into your hips. You can always take a shorter stance in your legs, and then you move on top of that. And so we're this sort of full body, making connections, mind, body, breath, everything. But at the same time, we're also separating. The legs are stability, the arms are moving. Low back, we don't want the low back or ribs to move here. Notice that that's happening. And I think you guys are all doing good. And then one more. And then step back to a plank if available. You could slowly make your way down to the floor if this isn't good on your joints. And then your call. So you could do spider finger cobra, upward dog, or regular cobra. So spider finger cobra is not about opening the chest. And then cobra, I find a little more muscular and stability. And then lower down, hands underneath you, downward facing dog. Good. And if you had a big weekend and you want to take a shorter stance in the lunge, I'm open to that, okay? Exhale, draw your right leg through. This is our last lunge in the series. Come up to a high lunge. Okay. Now, squeeze from your feet all the way into your hips in. Take your arms into a T. Now we're only going to move the upper body. So, and then you'll be really mindful here. You're just going to move a little bit. Like if we overshoot it, we're going to start to kind of collapse, and the back leg will start to turn again. And we don't really want that crossing. Yeah. And breathe. So less is more here. And you're just going to the right for today. If we go the other way, sometimes it could be a little tricky on people's backs. Inhale through center and then switch. So bring your left foot forward, right foot back. Arms into a T, and give yourself a moment to really stabilize.
Then it's just like what are those? A lazy Susan. The lower, from your lumbar down is the stable part of the lazy Susan. And then the top part is the spinning part. Oh, I think I want a chip. Oh, I want some dip, right? Oh, I want celery stick. How fun. Nothing like a lazy Susan. And we're just gonna go to the left here. Sometimes it can be a little tricky for people in their backs to go the other way, and I just don't wanna play that edge. And then inhale back through center, exhale, hands down. You're welcome to go through plank. If your joints are just over it, okay, make your way up to all fours and then onto your stomach. I get it, or your low back's a little something. Then on your call again, you could do upward dog, cobra, spider finger cobra, sphinx pose, whatever serves you best. Nice, sounds good. In your body today, downward facing dog or child's pose. And I do, class, I do recognize here, a lot of us do a lot, not only activities, but working, and sometimes we just need to kind of take it a little easy. And you want to honor where you're at today within your world. Okay, on your next exhale, bend your knees, bring your feet up to your hands, come to the top of the mat. You're welcome to have a bend in your knees as you fold. And here, I say that basically kind of once. So we don't want to tug too much at the origin where the sitting bone meets the hamstring or that tendon point. But once in a while, it's fine, just not all the time. And then on your inhale, come all the way up to stand, heart to sky, reach, reach, reach. And then exhale, hands down. So I'm going to show you this next one, and it's tricky, but it's more about the concept than it is about the movement. And you can always do a wall here for support in your hand. It would be your standing leg hand on the wall, and I'll show them real quick. So what we're going to do is this is not about exercising in the way we're going to bend into the knee a little bit, but the idea is it's just a spring. And you want to be able to just kind of dangle. So, in yoga, we like to be like, oh. We're not doing that. You're dangling the leg like this. And this is part of that disassociation of the hip from the leg. If that doesn't seem appropriate for you today, I'm going to have you go like this instead. Okay? So, start with right foot forward, left foot back, little bend into the knee. And if this feels at all risky for you, do the other one. And so you're not even trying to get your leg high, it's just dangle. Like somebody's pulling on your toes and then they just let them go. Like that. And again, I'll show here, the other version is here where you're not dealing with so much stability issue. Okay, couple more of those. Let the foot just hang. Yeah. Good. And I would say you all can kick a little bit less. So try and kick a little bit less. Like the laziest, this would be like if you went to a yoga class and you'd like judge, you'd be like, that person is so lazy. Be that person right now. But lift through your chest a little bit more. They're not even trying to get their leg high. No, we're not. Okay. 2 more. It's a weird concept. Okay, and then stand. You feel how your back leg feels much more into the floor. Yeah, or somewhat. Does that work? Good feel? Yeah. So that's the idea, is we're adding in some space into the joint. Okay, then second side. And you may find one side seems able to let go, and one side does not. And it's actually the side that does not is most likely where there's some dysfunction, or you might have some titanium parts in your body where it's not going to necessarily behave in the same way. And let's go here. One side you'll feel, and there's nothing wrong. Sometimes there's one side that's more stabilizing because the other side isn't stable. It's like, no, I'm not letting go. I'm holding the whole show together here. Right, and it's sweet. Got a couple more of these. Yeah, that's it, Heather. Yeah, it's just kind of Good. That's it. Let's do 3 more. Dig it out, yeah, 2 more. Dig even less. And then come back and feel, hopefully the sides feel a little more even now. All right, now we're gonna go into, we can do it in here. So let's, you guys in the room, you'll flip your mats around so they're horizontal. And you might just have to stack back there a little bit. And I will this way. And we're gonna do warrior 2. So you'll turn your right toes to the right, and then just depends, and you've been doing stuff, it just depends on how stable you feel. If you need to go a little more narrow to build that strength, do that. That's for anybody. Right toes to the right, front heel lines up with middle back arch. Bend into your front knee, and then with your front knee bent, you're just gonna set your left thigh back. Then Virabhadrasana 2 here, and you're gonna inhale, take your left arm up in the air, exhale, bend your left elbow and grab onto your left elbow with your right hand. So we're kind of sneaking in a little lengthening. Good. And I do say this to people, so it is good to have that 90-degree angle bend, thigh parallel, but if you had a big, you know, if your thigh's killing you, then, and then Patty, see if you can move your upper left hip unit or your left hip back more. That's it, good. And then undo the arms. From here, press from your right hip into your right heel to straighten your leg. And we do this here in triangle. It's really helpful to just think of sort of different parts. So hands on hips. We move from the hip crease on the right. The torso doesn't move. I mean, it's moving, but it doesn't change shape. It changes positions. And then you find your spot when, once you start to turn, you've gone too far. Okay, your just chest is facing straight ahead, hand up. Wherever that is, if your hand's on the ground, kudos. And then once you're in there, you may find as you breathe that you can, the hip will be able to send a little bit deeper back into the hip socket, and it might not, okay? It's fine, wherever you're at. And you know, when you work like this, well, now I have to work my legs a lot more. Well, great, because then you're not using your spine a lot more. We don't really wanna be doing that in this one here. And then strong in your legs, come on up, because your spine is kind of hanging on in a weird plane, right? Second side. Turn the toes the other way, hands on hips begin. And this, because once the arms get in play, it's like everything kind of goes a little wacky. So then you, warrior 2, thank you. Thank you. Bend the elbow, come on in, your upper right hip, the whole hip unit on the right side is moving back. That's it. And breathe. Nice. Good. Yeah. Couple more breaths here. Feeling that connection of the hip flexor all the way up through your elbow on the right side. Kind of interesting. Good. And then triangle. Plant your hands on your hips. Press from your left hip into your left heel, straighten your leg, and then hinge, right? So the torso is moving independently of the legs, but it's coming from the hip crease, and then arms go up into a T once you find your spot. And there's absolutely no reaching with your bottom hand. Once that happens, you're kind of contorting yourself, unfortunately. Yeah, good. So the movement is coming from the depth of the hip socket, not from reaching your shoulder girdle around. Yeah, press the center of the back of your head back towards the wall behind you. Good, oh, good work, Adley. And then inhale, come back up, nice. And then square the feet off. And we will come into, okay, so walk your feet back together. This is another one I'm gonna show. I don't always demo this much, but we're doing a little different stuff. So we had the concept in that, the sloppy kick forward thing. We're gonna take it to another level. You're gonna need a wall, and you don't need much, just your hand on some part of the wall. I'll show you here. You stand your foot, and this is a very typical hip flexor release, okay? You stand your foot on the block and watch first.
things you don't wanna do is to lean your hip into the wall, or you're gonna be contorted, and that could actually not be so friendly. You're away from the wall, I'm gonna move a little further away, so I feel comfortable. And then watch here first, you guys, please, that this is it. This is the only movement I'm doing. I'm not cocking my hip or else I'm dangling in some weird form here. You're straight up and down, so they're stabilizing on the standing leg. And I'm just swinging, and you can imagine it like a little Lego person, little Lego yoga assistant, pulling your heel down. Okay, and that's all we're gonna do. It's that pendulum hang. Okay, so get yourself a block, go to the wall, and you wanna feel far enough away from the wall that you're independent, where you can just stand on that leg. Yeah, and you just swing. Have you done this one before, Headley? Oh, you're great at it, good, yeah. And hand at the wall is gonna help you be in stillness in your upper body, because your upper body's gonna wanna kind of, good. And patio, just set your hips back a little bit more, that's it. Good. Nice, and so what does this do? Why are we doing this? It helps, it communicates to the hip flexor, like, hey dude, you don't have to hang on for dear life all the time. It's okay to be by yourself. That's like the social butterfly that can't be by themselves kind of thing, right? We got to learn how to be a little more independent. There's nothing wrong with the social butterfly. Of course, the other way is that you never see anybody. That's not good either. So I'm not trying to rip on social butterflies here. Okay, then come off of the block and stand with both feet on the floor just for a moment to feel the difference. You feel how the foot that was dangling is more into the floor. That's the hip flexor, letting a little bit of control go, and then flip it around the other way. And then we can see then how there's greater connection through the individual movement, right? So that was the quote that I wrote. I couldn't believe I found that quote. I was like, I don't know how to talk about what I'm gonna do today. I don't know the best concept. That's not gonna take me 4 hours to talk about. And that was the second quote I saw. So it's pretty great. All right. Just let that, yeah. And if you find that your toes start to brush the ground more, it depends on your leg height and everything. Kudos, that means, oh, your leg is actually dangling more, right? As long as you're not starting to drop. Good, good work there, Sarah. Just lift your chin up. But good work in keeping your torso in stillness. There you go, good. Yeah. And you'll find one leg is like, no, I don't want to go, right? Patty, see if you can lean your hips a little over to your right. So this is good for you, Patty, on your standing leg, as we all know. Yeah, good. And then release that. Good. So we did a little some training before we did that, because that can be a little harder of a concept. And then we're going to come into warrior one. So flip your mats around, those of you in the front of the room, or in the room, and see how warrior one feels after doing that. So right foot forward, left foot back, and what the hope is that without us doing a lot of fancy stuff, you could I can anchor the back leg more than sometimes you can. And it's okay if the back heel doesn't turn down, if that doesn't work. Then arms up. And so just notice, can you remember other times when you've done warrior one where you really feel in the front leg before we do a lot of adjusting? And here, hopefully there's just more of that anchor where you can connect. Good. Let's hook our thumbs here, press bottom thumb into top thumb. Good, and the legs stay anchored, they're doing their thing. And then the upper body is expanding upward for some axial elongation. Good. 2 more breaths, 1 and 2, and then release. And you may notice how it just felt like there was less fighting between the legs, right? So same thing, second side, you come in and just notice, oh, and this is my tighter side, so I don't feel it as much of that anchor. And then other thumb on the bottom. So you may notice that, difference. The tighter side, you will feel less grounded. Good. Or I could say it in the positive, and the open side, you will feel more grounded. Okay. Breathe, I work on that. Even inhale, crawl up through your back ribs, through your fingernails. And then release that. Nice. Okay, we're gonna do warrior one more time and we're gonna add something different in the arm. So right foot forward, left foot back. And you may notice now even more so, oh yeah, hello back leg. We're gonna interlace your fingers and draw them behind your back. So stage one, draw your shoulders up and stay here. And the idea is that we don't want the shoulders at any point to go down and forward. So if you straighten your arms and this happens, you don't want to do that. You want to keep your elbows bent. If you can keep the shoulders open, and then here, what can happen in these poses is that we open in the front of the ribs, but we're actually not opening the shoulders. And so you stay full in your back body, and then you actually get more stretch in the shoulders. So somebody might be able to, you know, open from the ribs quite far, but their shoulders can still be tight. Yeah. Inhale, lift through your right side body with your breath. And feeling this connection of reaching your hands back behind you, or your elbows if your elbows are bent, as you reach through that back leg, just kind of making that connection between the arms and the legs. And then release that and switch sides. Nice little anchor, and then of course we know we have to switch the pinkies. So you have to switch the pinkies here. Shoulders up and back, might be totally different world, maybe straighten your arms. And then once you're in there, feeling that anchor of the back leg, even if they don't move, think of even, if your elbows are bent, think of pulling the elbows back, otherwise think of pulling your hands back and then do. And then see if you can feel sort of a connection between the hands pressing back and the leg back, the back leg anchoring, just to more of a subtlety connection thing. Good. And then on your inhale, come forward and just standing at the top of your mat, close your eyes for a second and feel where your feet are in space. So are you leaning forward in your feet? Or are you leaning back? Or are you right over the arches? Hopefully with what we've done today, you feel that you're more over your arches. From here, we're gonna come down to the floor. Some of you may need a blanket or a block to sit on. And if this one doesn't work, then we'll give you something else. Let's start with our feet kind of further out. And then you're gonna cross your right ankle above your left knee. And this could be it. You could, and then here what'll tend to happen if you start to draw in is your upper body turns into like that for weird, you know, weirdo hanging out at the bus stop. We don't want that, or I shouldn't say weirdo, but inhale. Introverted person with a hoodie on, might be, had a little vape, who knows. But here, you want to open through your chest, draw your shoulders back, ears back. Couple of breaths here. My hands are turned out, not necessarily back. And then you could come on your fingertips if you're like, I want to have more chest lift, I just can't. And if you want more, you just walk in. But this is more about the collective, that you also need, if you're doing that, the chest needs to be lifted. Okay. Full breaths here. And then release that. And we'll start the same way, second side. You could stay here if that's your situation today. You could come in, you know, kind of test it out. I find it's better to do this one in stages than crawling in right away for most of us, because it gives the chest kind of the legs and the chest kind of connect a little bit more to get the lift while you're in there. And breathe. Is it your left hip, Ben? Yeah.
Everything's in the left side.
Yeah, okay.
Funny, along with being left hand.
Interesting, yeah, everything working.
Well, it's hard for left.
Yes. Couple more breaths here. And then release that. Good. Come on to your back, lift your feet up, take your knees out wide, and you're gonna circle we're making individual circles with the knees in opposite directions. You see if it's taken me a couple months to figure that out, but I think that's the best way to say that. It was not successful. So as you're doing this, are your hips moving? Move less if that's happening, and your hands are bossing around your legs. Again, we're trying to get the femurs to move without a bunch of stuff helping them along. I do feel my inner legs working as I draw in towards center. I don't know if that will change over time. And then from there, place your feet on the floor and knees bent. Okay, so this next one, you could be on, I suggest being on the middle block or the middle height of the block like this, the skinny long end underneath your hips here. And because we're not in this so much for a back bend right now. Okay, then some of you have been doing this with me recently. You're gonna pick up your right leg with your knee bend, and then straighten your right leg towards the sky, toes pointed. And then on your exhale, you're gonna flex your foot and lower your right leg down, only as far as your hips don't do anything other than hang out. And your back is not arching, and then lift it back up any more than it is to be lifted. And then continue here on the same side. And you take your leg up to 90 on the point. And if the foot is just too much to deal with, just keep your foot flexed and that's fine. Good, and just lower as much as you can where the hips don't go all wacky. Do one more here. And then place that foot down. Bending the knee, and then lift your left leg up, knee bent, then straighten it and lower and lift. You may find same thing here. Oh, way different worlds. Like one side, my hip is totally stable, the other, oh, I would say, well, let's see. Yeah. You might feel one side, the hip starts to work more to stabilize than the other. Patty, can you ground down through the inner rim of your right foot a little bit more? And then Ben, if you can, walk your right foot over to the left a little bit, as long as that feels okay. Yeah, it just might be, and so the foot is flexed on the way down. And then if you want to point it on the way up, otherwise just keep it flexed. I've decided. Good. And this is that, just moving the leg, except it's more now. Okay. And then one more, and this stuff is really good for people who use their hip flexors a lot, i.e. Jackson Hole people. And then both feet onto the floor, so bending in the knee and lowering back down. Good. Then lift up your hips and take the block out. Do a few windshield wipers once you're down into the ground. Now, we'll have a couple options. Well, let's do the first one with the block underneath the hips, just so we can feel the opening without as much effort. So we're going to do regular bridge pose, and most of us will either be on the long end or the high end of the block for bridge pose, placing that underneath your sacrum. And we are going to do it without. This is just so you can get a yummy stretch. Feet are hip distance apart. Knees are hip distance apart. And benefit feels available. You can have your feet closer in unless that doesn't work for you today. And then place your hands in robot arms, or if you can crawl your hands to the other, arms around the block to interlace that, you could do that too. Good. Inner edges of your feet press down into the ground. So here we're talking separate actions. Inner edges of the feet press down. Outer edges of the legs lift up. And then bend again. If it's advisable for you, you could walk your feet more hip distance apart. If some reason that's not working, but it might just be hard to get the inner thighs to work right now. Yeah, and then press upper arm bones down, shoulders down, chest to chin. Chin is chill, meaning you don't draw your chin to your chest. Okay, then you might have to lift your heels up to take the block out, unless you're like, no, what, I don't want it. I'm good. But for most of us, it's gonna have a little effort. So lower the hips down. All the way down to the floor if that feels okay for you. And then we're gonna do regular bridge pose or robot arm bridge. So robot arm bridge is where your forearms are parallel to one another, fingertips up to the sky, or regular bridge is interlaced. So press down through your feet, lift your hips up. And then once you're there, arm bones press down, shoulders press down, chest lifts towards chin. And Hallie, you can walk your feet a little closer to your hips. Good. Nice, Dave. Good. So some of you may notice, oh, we didn't do that many shoulder openers, but we sure did get into the hip flexors, which really can hold the shoulders back. That's it. Good. And then lower down, hips first if available. Okay, this next one, you could do that. And if this is also a joint issue, so you could do exactly what we did and you can play around. You could lift one leg up and then the other as long as your hips stay even. So I'm kind of opening it up. But if, oh yeah, sorry, total brain fart. You could place your hands underneath your hip bones like this, so the fingers to the outside, and then your shoulders are down into the ground. So you don't want to do this if this is going to really hurt your wrists. It's really not going to get you anywhere spectacular if that's the problem. Okay, but if you can place the block underneath you in the highest end. You could do regular bridge, and then if you're like, well, I'm doing regular bridge, but I want to do something fancy, you could, take one leg up and then the other, but you got to keep the hips where they are. Okay, so don't let your hips move. So any of those versions are great. Choose your delight and do that. Okay, good. Hadley, walk your feet a little closer to your hips, turn your right toes in a little bit, hug inner thighs in. Ben, this is probably just really good for the strength of your back line and working those inner thighs as best you can. That's it. Good. How do you think a little less movement in the hips as you take one leg up and then the other? So think hips are sitting on a table and not moving. Two more. Good, Dave, yeah. And then as you're ready, lower down. If you were sitting on your hands, literally, you can roll at your wrists. Nice. And just notice, so what I notice in that, you could do a few windshield wipers here, is that sometimes when we do these kind of things, there's quite a little bit of grunting going on. And that, for us here, I think has something to do with fighting through the hip flexors and quads. And we kind of eliminated that with what we did today, okay? Then bend your knees, feet on the floor, and then pick up your feet off the floor, grab behind your thighs, right in the center of the hamstring, and press your thighs into your hands. And this is another sort of disassociation. So you could draw your knees to your chest, but then once you've done that, press your thighs forward towards the wall in front of you. So the knees are right over the hip creases. And this is just kind of taking the thighs into the back plane. And then Dave, really good. You're just gonna draw your knees actually more over your hip creases because but good for going for it. And then exhale, feet up to the floor. You're welcome to then do a few windshield wipers and then Shavasana. Extending one leg if you want some support. You can always have your feet on the floor, knees bent. You can place a blanket underneath your knees rolled up. And just notice after all of this play, kind of going back between the individual movements of the body, we did some not only in the legs, but in the arms. And then more of and then if you want a little more support underneath the legs, you're going to spin your block underneath each thigh.
Like here.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
I like it like this just for a little bit.
Okay, okay. Then, and then you feel the connection of just feeling your own interconnectedness, not only to yourself, but then also the connectedness you might feel in the way of expansion into the outer world. As the limbs are able to move freely, then they are able to then connect down into the earth more as you lay. Read this quote one more time. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. Through our eyes, the universe is perceiving itself. Through our ears, the universe is listening to its harmonies. We are the witnesses through which the universe becomes conscious of its glory, of its magnificence. And bend your knees, place your feet into the earth. If you're ready, you can roll onto your right side. And then with the help of your left hand, press up to the seat of your choice. You take your right hand up, then your left hand, and just lightly kind of touch your hands together without a lot of force and feel what that feels like. You may even notice here, I can feel how my forearms have to work a little bit more and even a little bit into my shoulders. And then we connect, pressing deeper, one hand and then to the other, and then shoulders relax, forearms relax. Experiencing that connection of the two parts coming together, how much more easeful that is. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you. Yeah.
That's excellent.
I'm glad you came.
Can a beginner buddy of mine take this class?
Has he ever done?
I'll have to check with him.
Yeah, so if he's done some yoga, I think it wouldn't be about like me, but I think he would feel, if he's not familiar with some of the poses, it might feel too foreign.
Yeah.
But if he's done some yoga and he knows the poses, yes. You know what I mean? Not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
by name, but.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of,
shapes.
as I was lying there, the same thing.
Yeah,
Want to get back into or get into it, I'm not sure. I
yeah.
just came up with a great yoga t-shirt idea.
Ooh, do tell.
Well, I need you to just lay in Shavasana right there, and I'm gonna get down on the ground and take a picture of you laying down. And then the screen print's just Shavasana with roots coming off.
Ooh, that's really good.
That might be good.